Over the weekend, the Carolina Hurricanes hosted their exit interviews. Today, we will be looking at some notable interviews and talking about our takeaways from said exit interviews, all in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this rainy Monday afternoon. I am joined once again by my co-host, Andrew Schnittker. How you doing today, Andrew?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to breaking down some exit interviews here.
Yes, and we're going to dive on into those exit interviews, starting with the Hurricanes captain, Jordan Staal. He's kind of him, along with the goalies, are the ones that a lot of folks are going to be looking at this offseason because they're all UFAs. Jordan Staal's finally reached the end of his 10-year deal that he signed when he first came here from Pittsburgh. And I think everyone kind of feels he'll be back. That's not necessarily a like, oh, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Or anything like that. If the Hurricanes were how they were, you know, 6-7 years ago, then maybe we're having a different conversation here of him, them letting him go, try to get another ring, and that kind of deal. But that's not the case anymore. The Hurricanes are knocking on that door, and I'm confident he'll be back. He said, he made it clear that he wants to be on the team next season, and his confidence that it will happen, and he still feels like he can contribute to the team's success. And he still is contributing to the team. It's not like he's just there, collecting a paycheck or anything like that. He still has something to bring this team. Is he the player he was, 10 years ago when he first came here? No, he's not. But that happens with all athletes, from every team and every sport. Age is gonna catch up to them whether they want it to or not. I know you give me crap about being a Tom Brady fan, but you look at his final season. Yeah, the Bucks weren't as good as they were in previous and his previous season, or no, 2 seasons there. Excuse me. I totally forgot how long he was down there. But age caught up with him. And that happens to everyone. But just like Tom Brady, he still was able to contribute to that team. And Jordan Staal, he can still contribute to this Hurricane team. So I am confident that they'll get something done. Is it going to be another 10-year deal? No, it's not. It's probably going to be 2-3 years max. But Andrew, what were your takeaways from Jordan Stahl's exit interview?
Well, I want to start. It's funny you mentioned, that 10-year deal. I hadn't really thought about that's over and up now. Signed 2 general managers ago by Jim Rutherford. You look at those length and term of deals, often at some point do not work out, go sideways, become an albatross. That never happened with Jordan Staal. It was a 10-year deal that actually ended up working out very well. Were there maybe years when he's a moderate overpayment at $6 million a year? Yeah, maybe. But for the leadership and the two-way play and everything else he brought, not a ton. It never became a truly bad contract, which I think when you look at, the way those 10-year type deals that were signed in the past have usually aged, I think that really speaks to Jordan Staal and what he's brought to the table over his now 11 years as a Hurricane. That's crazy to think about. But yeah, I thought his exit interview was fairly what I expected. I didn't really, I've seen people talk about like, oh, I think he's going to retire. And I don't really know where that's coming from because we haven't felt any kind of that sentiment from him. And if you watch this team play, you watch him play with this team, like you just said, clearly he still has something to offer. Clearly he likes it here. He wants to be here. You mentioned the chase a ring thing. I feel like if he wants to chase a ring, he wants to do it with the Hurricanes because I
Mhm.
do think we can agree they're close. They're not far off. I do think in terms of leadership, in terms of that two-way play, especially on the penalty kill, he still has a lot to offer. Obviously, it's going to come at a significant discount, I think, for the Hurricanes as compared to the previous deal he was on. Now, I don't expect him to sign like 1 year, 1 million, probably 2 to 3 million. Maybe 1 year, maybe we're at the point with him where he just kind of decides what he wants to do every offseason and he gets a 1 year deal each offseason until he's just ready to hang it up. We've seen that, across the league in this sport and other sports with previous veterans in that situation before. Maybe the Hurricanes, if they add another center this offseason, maybe he transitions into a little bit more of a fourth line center role while obviously still being kind of the main guy up front on the penalty kill. But yeah, I expected to hear that sort of thing from Jordan Staal about wanting to be back with this team. And you and I were just talking about this before the we started that, pending UFAs typically don't say, well, no, I hate this place. As soon as it gets to July 1, I'm gone. But like in Jordan's case, I think it's truly genuine. I think he wants to be here. The team wants him back. I fully expect him to be back.
I do too. And you know, you look at that 10-year deal. He stayed here through the entirety of it, through the dark years. He never left, and he very well could have been like, All right, I want out. I'm requesting a trade." I don't remember that happening. And he stuck it through in that contract. Yeah, I mean, you sign a long-term deal like that, there's going to be up and down years, regardless of the sport. But yeah, he still has something to offer this team. Again, I don't expect a long-term deal. Like I said, like you said, 1 year, that's very possible. Yeah, I think 3 years max, and then if he signs a deal like that, say 2, 3 years, then at the end of that, then maybe we're talking about retirement. You know, but yeah, right now I don't see that happening. He's gonna be back. The team is good. They're knocking on the door. It's not like they're a bad team. And so he's gonna be back. And I'm fully confident in that. Then transitioning over to another veteran player, Brent Burns. He obviously came over from San Jose after spending 11 years there. And he really took to the Hurricanes, really, really quickly. Yeah, there was a bit of a transition period at the start of the season, but as a whole, he's a great player here for the Hurricanes. And, he talked about, how much he loves the city of Raleigh and how good the community has been to him and his family since he came here. And yeah, the team like immediately, you know, just latched on to him. I remember, when the trade or shortly after the trade happened, like he was already here. A few days after the trade, already here working out and being going around the city and whatnot, people running into it. I remember, I don't remember the exact date, but I remember, SmackDown was at PNC Arena. He was there. Folks were taking pictures with him. And, folks, really, really love Brent Burns here. And, because you've seen in past years, regardless of the team or in sport, a player gets traded to a new place. Fans, don't are hesitant to not necessarily welcome and like really like embrace that player, and that wasn't the case with Brent Burns. Folks love him, and he loves it here, and that's great to see. It's not a thing like, oh, he gets traded here and he's just here to be here, essentially here because he has to be. That's not the case. He genuinely seems to like it here.
Yeah, I think you saw from a very early on that Brent Burns was a perfect fit for the Hurricanes on and off the ice. You know, what he can do on the ice, his commitment to his fitness, his two-way play fits really well with what Rod Brind'amour wants and asks of his players. The way that he can generate shots from the point and create offense, really good fit for the Hurricane system. And yeah, I do think, like you said, you saw, last summer early on, he got to Raleigh. He was going to events in Raleigh. He was very much around, very much a presence before he even started playing for the Hurricanes. And I do think correct me if I'm wrong, he had some sort of partial trade protection last
Yes, he did.
offseason. Like he had a say. He could have said no to coming to the Hurricanes if he didn't want to come here, I think.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
he didn't do that. I mean, obviously, he would have been somewhat foolish too. You look at where San Jose is, you look at where the Hurricanes are as a contender for a guy who's never won a ring. But yeah, the way that he embraced the Raleigh community and it embraced him again before he ever set foot on the ice in a Hurricanes uniform was really cool to see. The way he was just very clearly all in, all
Hmm.
into the Hurricanes, all into the community, all into the culture that Rod Brind'amour has built here. And I think, again, this is a guy who hasn't won a ring in his career. Those kinds of guys are really valuable to add because of how hungry they are. You hear Rod Brind'amour talk about that, and obviously what he adds on the ice. I hope in the next couple of years we get to see Brent Burns lift the Stanley Cup as our Carolina Hurricane. I just think that would be a really cool story.
Yeah, I do as well. And, you know, one thing, with him as well is, you know, again, just how quickly, he took to the community and the city. He was, within a few days of getting traded here, already here, because you don't always see that. You see guys, take their time to get to their new city again, regardless of the sport. You know, some guys are like, oh God, traded, got to go, find a new place to live and, all that stuff, and, they just kind of, home, gym, game, and that's it, Brent Burns was out there, being, you know, a part of the community, and that was really, really nice to see, and I'm so glad that we have a couple more years of him here as a Hurricane as well. But, one thing, that was, a bit of a downer, was Steph Nazen, review, as is typical with interviews, you find out about injuries, and found out, that he suffered a grade 3 shoulder dislocation during the playoffs, and but it shouldn't require surgery, which is good. But yeah, I had my shoulder dislocated before. It wasn't that bad, but yeah, it's not fun. And it's, and he was a guy that played, almost every game this season, aside from missing a couple, due to injury. The fact that, he, had that, that sucks, man. It really does. And I'm obviously really glad doesn't require surgery because, there's no telling, how long that would put him out of action, then, going into training camp and preseason and regular season and all that. I want him here. He was another guy that, you know, really provided something for this team. A guy that in the past has struggled to find a spot on an NHL roster. That wasn't the case this season. He was on a two-way deal like Jalen Chatfield. Could have been sent down at any time, but he really forced Rod Brind'amour, Tim Gleason, the coaching staff's hand. Like, no, we got to have him on this roster, and obviously wishing him a speedy recovery because that does not sound fun.
No, yeah, definitely wishing a speedy recovery for Stefan Nason, and he emerged this year as a really nice glue guy, a guy who was capable of providing secondary scoring in the bottom six, a guy who was a nice piece on the power play, making
Hmm.
plays below the goal line, nice, quick short passes that you need on the power play, kind of, capable of being moved up and down the lineup, capable of playing in the top six in a pinch. You saw him on the top line with Sebastian Aho for much of the playoffs with the injuries the Hurricanes were dealing with. I don't think that's his game, but obviously they were, kind of forced into that. But yeah,
Yeah.
nice piece for the Hurricanes. Nice story too, the way that he had a really, really good year with the AHL champion Chicago Wolves the season before and
Hmm.
parlayed that into getting, because he's a guy who had been in the NHL before, into getting back into that regular NHL role with the Hurricanes.
Yeah, it was a really great story for him, and we will continue to talk about the Hurricanes exit interviews right after this quick break. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right, so the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win are when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available for U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Now, getting back on into the exit interviews, kind of, I guess, sticking with the injury stuff from the playoffs. Jacob Slavin, we talked, about how that big hit that he took in game 4, they end up knocking him out. It was clear when it happened. He was concussed. I've had 3 in the past. It's not fun. I know you've had one before as well. They're not fun, and you could immediately tell that he was concussed. He was done for the game. Done. Obviously done for the remainder of the series. But had the series continued, he would have been done for the remainder of the series as well. So in he did say that he was feeling okay now after that hit, which is good to know because concussions are nothing to mess with. You remember, was it last season or the season before when Tavo was having a lot of concussion issues and it took forever to come back. But that season I was like, take as long as you need. And heck, another player this season, we only saw him in one game. Andre Kasha, had the concussion the first game, never came back, and they're not anything to mess with. So the fact that he is feeling good is a really good sign, because they are, again, nothing to mess with at all.
Yeah, definitely not. I think, you look at Jacob and how everything he means to this team. I think that was a really scary moment for the Hurricanes in that game. I give them credit for bouncing back and still really battling in that game after that happened, because it's another one of those things where, it can be easy to be a little bit shell shocked and pulled up. But yeah, good to sound like it's not going to be any lingering effects, that he's going to be good to go to do all his normal stuff this off season. And two, just that he doesn't have to spend his off season like dealing with concussion symptoms, recovering from a concussion. He can spend that time with his family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good for him because, we cannot stress enough. Those are nothing to mess with. And the fact that he is okay or is going to be okay, can go about his off season like normal, spend his time with his wife and his kids. That's great. Probably go over to what's the one they go to all the time? Prime Barbecue over in Nightdale, I think. They can go over there, and have lunch or dinner and not have to worry about concussion symptoms for him. That's always good. But another person we did get to hear from, who we sorely missed in the playoffs, was of course Andrei Svechnikov. He talked about how difficult it was to watch the playoffs and not be able to participate. But he does think he'll be able to start getting back on the ice in about a month or so. I know he did mention he was going to go home for a bit and then come back, I believe, sometime in July. So that's going to be really good for him, because we talked about it throughout the playoffs. We're not gonna beat that dead horse anymore. But the Hurricanes really could have used him, and I think he realized that, like, oh man, I could really be, if my knee was in good shape, I could be out there. I could really be helping them out. So I do expect him to to come back, just like Jacob Slavin, just like Steph Hayes. He's going to come back even hungrier to win next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Andrei Svechnikov is a guy we've seen. He's a competitor. He wants to win. He wants to do well. So I'm sure that was really tough for him not getting to play in the playoffs. It's going to, he's probably going to be one of those guys that you hear about coming back from a major injury with even more appreciation for the game and the ability to go out there and give it your all every day. And it's good to hear that he's on track, because if you're the Hurricanes, you definitely want him hopefully ready to go come training camp.
Yeah, for sure. And, again, he brings so much to the team. Same with Jacob Slavin, so, and Steph Nazin, he brings stuff to the team as well. So, you look at all those guys, battling through the injuries, and then missing time, for injuries like Svetch, and Slavin missing the remainder of that game for, this just kind of shows that every guy, really plays a role on this team. No one is there just to be there. They're all there because they contribute and add something to the team. And obviously wishing all of these guys, the speediest of recoveries. And, we do also, did get to hear from Freddie Andersen as well, and as well as, Brett Pesce, Jesper Foss, Sebastian Aho. We got to hear from all those guys, but, Freddie Andersen, is another guy that, folks are talking about a lot, because of course he is a UFA this offseason. And same with Antti Ranta. And, he gave a pretty, typical response, like we kind of mentioned earlier with Jordan Staal. No one's gonna say, yeah, I'm out. No one's gonna say that. But he did say, his priority is to return, but we will see how negotiations go. Pretty typical stuff there. Now I do expect, had he not had the playoffs he had, I could see the Hurricanes being okay letting him walk. But he really elevated his game in the playoffs, and I do fully expect the Hurricanes to be offering him a contract extension. Again, I kind of expect it to be, another 2-year deal, maybe 3, maybe. That's a big maybe. But I'm kind of expecting another 2-year deal for him. I'm not expecting a long-term deal, by any stretch, because, now you have Pyotr Kochetkov, waiting in the wings as well, who I think, will be on the Hurricanes roster next year, maybe as the backup, essentially filling in Antti Ranta's spot, who I do not think will be back. That's no slight against him. But, Freddie, you again, he gave a pretty typical response, but, he's right. We're just going to have to see how negotiations go.
Yeah, I don't want to spend a ton of time on Freddie, just because we're gonna have an episode coming up of kind of where we see things going with these pending UFAs. But yeah, I think things have, the injuries have been unfortunate, but things have overall gone well for him since he's come to the Hurricanes, after kind of a rough ending to his tenure in Toronto. So I could certainly see him wanting to be back here.
Yeah, 110% can see him wanting to be back. But again, we did get to hear from Brett Pesce, Jesper Foss, Shane Gosper, and Sebastian Aho, and we will dive into their exit interviews right after this quick break. All right, folks, getting back into the exit interviews, Brett Pesce, a real integral part of the team. And, he's spent his entire career in the organization. He spent some time in Charlotte when they were still the AHL affiliate, and he spent his entire NHL career here on the Hurricanes. And, he said that he wants to be here his whole career and that Raleigh is his home. And it's great to hear guys say that they want to spend their career here, because, quite often, some guys, kind of just feels like, they're just, and not just for the Hurricanes, all sports, they're just there because they got to be, it's not necessarily, especially when it comes to a small market team. Yeah, they're there because they gotta be, but they'd rather be in like a bigger city or something like that. You know, former Hurricane. No slight against him. Really enjoyed his time here, but Vincent Trocheck, he wanted to be in New York. He wanted to be in a big city, and so it is nice to hear, someone say that they want to spend their whole career here, that this is their home. Yeah, heck, sticking in North Carolina sports, LaMelo Ball said the same thing. He wants to spend his career with one team, and that's the team that drafted him. Charlotte Hornets. A place that especially the way that Charlotte is a nice city, but the team itself, not the best team right now. So it is nice to hear guys saying that, hey, they want to be here on these teams. And yeah, Hurricanes are obviously in a better spot than the Hornets, of course. But yeah, it it's so nice to hear that from guys.
Yeah, you look at Brett Pesce, everything that he's meant to this team, really good, steady presence on that second pairing for so long. Really nice homegrown, third round pick, drafted, developed success story. The interesting thing for me is going to be he has had a few injuries. He's been healthy the past couple of years, but
Hmm.
Brett Pesce would be 29 by the time a new deal kicked in. Um, the Hurricanes have shown an aversion to paying, to locking up guys past a certain age to big deals. You saw it with Dougie Hamilton. You saw it with Vincent Trocheck. So I do think this is going to be an interesting negotiation to watch. I find it unlikely that the Hurricanes are probably going to be willing to go with like a 7, 8 year term for Brett
Yeah.
Pesce. But if he's more amenable to say like 3, 4, 5 years, then it becomes a lot easier for me to see something getting done. But we do have some plans at some point in the next couple of weeks to go a lot more in depth on what this kind of stuff might look like for these guys who are approaching the last year of their deals.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the kind of term I was thinking. Then after that, like Jordan Staal, we'll again talk about that more in depth in the next episode. But do that, 3 to 5 year deal. Then after that ends, if he's still having something to bring, doing little short deals like that. But Jesper Foss, another guy, approaching the end of his. He said that he had 3 great years here, probably the most fun he's had in a long time, that he and his family love it here. Both of his kids were born here in Raleigh as well. The priority is that if they want him here and they can figure it out, that'd be the best thing for him. And I definitely want him back. He's another guy that like Jordan Staal, he's contributing to this team. He came with some clutch goals in those playoffs, and I really I you saw it with Jordan Martinook a couple years ago as well. The family aspect of really playing into wanting to be here. Again, the team being successful, that's obviously going to play a big part. But you forget, these are people too. You know, these are not just the guys we see on our TV or we see down the ice at the arena. They have lives outside of here. And a lot of these guys have families. And for them, to really enjoy it here, raising their families and being here, that is always something that I do think goes under the radar when guys are trying to find new teams again, regardless of the sport. It is the family aspect of it, and the fact that you have a guy like this. Both of his kids were born here. There's obviously going to be that attachment to the city, and it. And then also he does bring something to the table as well. So I'm really hoping they can get something done for him as well, because I really enjoy watching Jesper Frost on the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's brought a lot. You remember when they signed him 3 years ago now to a 3x2 deal, hearing about all the things he brought in terms of two-way play, secondary scoring, being a really good teammate. He'd won that like best teammate award of some
Hmm.
sort every year that he'd been with the Rangers. You've seen that here. In a perfect world, I would certainly like to see him back. Um, I have a couple reservations about whether or not that's going to work out that I'll
Hmm.
talk about when we do our pending free agents look ahead. But definitely, I think that the union in the last few years between the Hurricanes and Jesper Foss has been a very successful one. And again, he's not somebody that I'm surprised to hear wants to be back here, if things work out.
Yeah, exactly. But one that is a bit more, I guess, hesitant on coming back. Not necessarily hesitant on coming back, but not, like I want to be here, kind of deal was Shane Gostisbehere. He's committed to testing free agency. He wants to choose a team, but the Hurricanes are still an option for him. Yeah, he is definitely. We all know, he is a trade deadline rental essentially. Then, if they could, get something, done in the off season, then go right on ahead. He's a guy that we saw, what he can bring to the team. So it's not like like last year, Max Domi, who was one where I'm like, okay, I don't like this. Let's go ahead on and move on from this one. Who I didn't want them to try to resign, but Shane Gostisbehere, he brought something to the table for the team, and it's one that if they could get something done, I wouldn't mind doing it. Again, it's not one that I'm like you got to get this done or anything like that. But that's kind of the closest you're gonna get to, I'm out, kind of deal. But again, he said the Hurricanes are still an option. This is a good team. It's not like it was a trade deadline move and he just gets, shipped off, to some some other team, that's not contending or anything like that. No, this is a contending team. This is a team where you could win a ring. So that's again is always going to be something that is uh playing into a guy's decision of wanting to win a ring. And, we'll see how things shake out for him.
Well, and when you look at Shane Gostisbehere, I don't really view the whole, saying he wants to test free agency and saying, he has earned the right to choose a team. You look at him, he's been in the NHL now 8 full seasons, and this is not really a chance that he's had before. He was
Yeah.
drafted by the Flyers. He re-signed with the Flyers. He gets traded to Arizona. He gets traded to the Hurricanes. He has never had the opportunity to go out and look at the offers and talk to people and really just choose his own team, choose where he wants to go. So no, I
Yeah.
think that's what where this is coming from with him.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's like, screw this place, I'm out.
No, yeah.
Yeah. So, with him, definitely getting to test free agency, that could also, be something that, say, he does, want to come back and then he gets an offer from, I don't know, Detroit. He can be like, well, Detroit offered me this. What can you guys do? So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. We'll talk more about that stuff as the off season rolls on. But one that I think, actually, I think both of us think that a lot of people are blowing way out of proportion was Sebastian Aho. He, he was obviously asked about a contract extension. Now, he didn't sound as confident as Jordan Staal of a deal getting done. But again, that's nothing to really read into, in my opinion. Because he still has 1 year left on his deal. This is not, he is not a pending UFA or anything like that. He said, I like to be here. We'll see, but I haven't thought about it at all yet. I can probably give you a better idea a little later. And you think about that. Again, this was not a contract year for him. They just got done with the playoffs. He was focused on that. He was not focused on, getting a contract extension or anything like that. This is not something I am really worried about. The off season for them just started. Okay. So again, this is getting blown way, way, way out of proportion. It's not that he wants to go to Montreal or anything like that. Like folks are saying years ago when he signed the offer sheet, he clearly he wants to be here. He wouldn't have spent, oh God, how many years has he been here now? Like 7, 8 years or something like that. He wouldn't have spent 8 years here if he didn't want to be here. So, I think, we'll kind of get more on that as the off season rolls on. Now, if we get to training camp and we haven't heard any sort of updates on anything, or if one has been signed or anything like that, then we start rolling through the season and stuff like that. Then I'm like, okay, maybe we need to pick up the pace on this a little bit, really try to get something done, because we're both in the same boat. Like, this needs to get done this off season, or if push comes to shove, during the regular season, because we've seen that in the past with extensions of them getting done in the regular season. Because I really do not want him to hit free agency and get those offers coming in from other teams, because I feel like that happens, then the Hurricanes may be screwed, because there are going to be teams with more cap space that can offer him more money, and I really don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think people are overreacting a lot. Really, feels like people are overreacting to two words there, the "we'll see." And again, like you just mentioned, he said that 2 days, after Game 4 against Florida. That is not something that I think he's had any time to think about. That is not something I think he's had any time to even discuss with his agent, let alone for any discussion to take place between his agent and the team. So we'll see is truly just we'll see. We haven't even started anything yet. I do think it's going to be a priority for the Hurricanes. I think they know that they're going to need to approach this differently than they did last time when he was an RFA and they had all the leverage. I'm with you. I think if we get to training camp and nothing's been done or no real progress has been made, I don't feel as good about this. And I do think it's something they should try really hard to get done this summer. But right now, I just don't think there's any reason to panic about this.
Yeah, I don't either. And even if it doesn't get done this summer, you still have till next summer. You have a year to get this done. So it's not like it has to be done by July 1 or anything like that. So there is time for this to get done. So don't freak out. Same with Seth Jarvis. I don't believe he was asked about it, but he's another guy. The Hurricanes should definitely look at locking up before he were to hit the open market next off season. But again, that's another one. There's plenty of time to get this stuff done. It's not like it has to get done, by the end of the week. It's not like it's a school project you put off to the last minute. There is time to get this stuff done. So don't freak out. It's about Sebastian Aho saying we'll see. There's plenty of time. When this was done, like Andrew said, it had been 2 days since their season ended. Literally haven't had time to think about it. But we will continue to discuss Hurricanes stuff throughout the off season. Later on in the week, we'll be doing a mailbag from you guys. We will be talking about our best moments. We will be talking about free agents. Should they stay? Should they go? As well as handing out our awards and then your guys' awards for the team for the season. And we will be doing that all throughout the week. So make sure you are following on Twitter at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. And Andrew on Twitter at ASchnitt53 with the Jeff Skinner shout out there. Always got to throw that in there. And also subscribe on YouTube. We had a nice little boom during the playoffs, and we want to keep that going. So come on over there as well. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode. And as always, let's go Canes.